Greetings, Lore Masters. Tonight, our chronicle doesn't delve into the machinations of a Daedric prince or the grand history of the Septim dynasty. No, tonight we journey to the places between the stories. We go looking for the quiet corners of a world we all think we know by heart. You see the map of Skyrim in your mind's eye, the 9 holes, the towering peak of the throat of the world, the dark gash of Riften's Valley. You see the icons, the fast travel points, the dungeons you've cleared so many times you could probably do it blindfolded, which, let's be honest, would be a more interesting challenge than facing Draugr Death Overlords for the 1000th time. You've followed the quest markers, you've saved the world, you've probably even stolen every sweet roll from Dragon's Reach. But Skyrim is vast, and its secrets are etched not just in forgotten crypts, but on lonely mountainsides and beneath silent waters. Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive a trip to Cold Harbour without some serious enchanted gear, but the real danger in Tamriel? It's thinking you've seen it all. It's the arrogance of the seasoned player, the one who fast travels everywhere, missing the 100 tiny narratives playing out on the roads not taken. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, as always, I'd love to see your location and your local time. It's always fascinating to see where in the world our little community is settling in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Our story begins not with a dragon's roar, but with the crunch of snow under a heavy boot. The Dragonborn is pushing south from Falkreath, past the ruins of Helgen, a place of such traumatic beginnings, and into the high, cold spine of the Geralt Mountains. The air thins, and the wind here doesn't just whisper, it screams. It's a bitter, high-altitude cold that seeps through even the thickest Dragonscale armour. This isn't a path. There is no convenient quest marker, no helpful NPC pointing the way. This is deliberate, aimless exploration, a perpendicular climb away from the well-worn roads that ferry merchants and Civil War patrols. Most adventurers pass below, perhaps clearing out a bandit cave or finding a word wall, but they rarely just climb. They rarely look up at the sheer icy cliffs separating Skyrim from Cyrodiil and think, I wonder what's up there. But the Dragonborn does. Pushing past jagged rocks and through snowdrifts that reach their waist, they find a small, almost invisible path carved into the mountainside. It's less a path and more a suggestion, a route only a goat or a very determined hermit would take. Following it, the world opens up onto a small, precarious plateau, and there, perched on the edge of the world, is a cabin. It's a simple, ramshackle thing, braced against the wind with a plume of smoke rising from its chimney. This is Angi's camp. There are archery targets set up, some close, some at frankly ridiculous distances. A lone figure stands near the cabin, a fur-clad woman with a bow in her hand. She doesn't knock an arrow at the Dragonborn's approach, but she watches, her posture radiating a try-me energy. This is Angi. She's not a quest giver. She does not have a glowing marker over her head. She is, for all intents and purposes, a non-entity to the grand narrative of the world. She is simply there. If the Dragonborn speaks to her, her voice is rough, unused to conversation. She's wary, but she isn't hostile. She's a hermit, a master archer who's removed herself from the world for reasons that are her own. This is, of course, the core in-game fact. Angi is a unique trainer. If the Dragonborn is polite, and perhaps a little curious, Angi will tell her story. It's a sharp, brutal little tale, typical of the sorrows of this land. Her family, her mother and father, were murdered by 2 drunken Imperial soldiers. They came to her home. They were unpleasant, and when her father resisted, they cut him down. Her mother followed. Angi, in a moment of pure, cold survival, grabbed her father's bow and killed them both. Then she fled. She fled south, as high as she could climb until the world was just wind and stone and snow, and she could be left alone with her grief and her practice. She offers to train the Dragonborn not for gold, but for the sake of the craft. She presents a series of 6 challenges, a course, of her own design. Shoot the close target, shoot the medium one, shoot the far one. Now, do it all again, but fast. The Dragonborn, this slayer of gods and monsters, is reduced to a student, listening to the terse commands of a woman whose only worldly possession is her skill. With each challenge completed, Angi grants a full level in archery. No paying gold to Fandel, no emptying your pockets for Ayla the Huntress. Just pure skill-based mentorship, given freely by a woman who has nothing else to give. Completing her gauntlet rewards 6 free skill points and her own bow. A simple hunting bow, yes, but it feels heavier than most artifacts. It's here, in this isolated spot, that the lore deepens. An obscure tidbit that many overlook is the context of hermits in Nordic culture. In a land obsessed with honour in battle, mead halls, and the glorious afterlife of Sovngarde, choosing solitude is a profound, almost spiritual statement. In-game books like The Cabin in the Woods tell tales of those who seek the wild, either to find peace or to nurse a dark obsession. Angi is a living embodiment of this. She isn't just a sad woman, she's a figure of focused mourning, a secular monk whose prayer is the thwack of an arrow into a target. She has turned her trauma into a discipline, and in a land torn apart by a civil war, a war fought by the very factions that destroyed her life, her rejection of both sides, her retreat into the sky, is its own powerful political and philosophical stance. She is the ultimate neutral party, loyal only to the memory of her family and the perfection of her aim. This, naturally, leads to the community debate that surrounds her. Who was Angi before this? Players have long theorised about her past. Her skill is exceptional, far beyond that of a simple farmer's daughter. One popular theory suggests she was a former companion. She has the skill, the resilience, and the live and die by your own strength mentality. Perhaps she left Jorvaska to settle down with her family, only to have that new life ripped away, sending her back to a life of discipline, but this time a discipline of solitude. Another theory posits she was a scout for the Imperial Legion, which would make the betrayal by her own soldiers even more bitter, explaining her absolute seclusion. The game, of course, never confirms this. She remains a mystery, defined only by her present. Fans love to argue whether her self-imposed exile is a sign of strength or of crippling PTSD. Is she a master finding peace, or a victim hiding from a world that broke her? The Dragonborn stands there having completed the trials. The 6 skill points are a welcome, if slightly anticlimactic, reward. The real prize is the view. From Angi's camp, the Dragonborn can see the world spread out below, the forested darkness of Falkreath, the distant snowy plains of Whiterun, the very peak of the throat of the world. It's a view that 99% of players will never see. They'll never feel the sting of the wind on this specific ledge, or hear Angi's quiet, "not bad," after a particularly difficult shot. It's a moment of profound quiet in a game filled with noise. Angi simply returns to her routine. She practices, she chops wood, she stares out at the expanse. She's a complete story in one tiny optional location. She asks for nothing and gives a great deal. The Dragonborn's map icon for Angi's camp is now marked, but it feels insufficient. It should be marked Angi's Penance, or the Archer's Solitude. Leaving the camp, descending back into the real world of quests and dragons, feels like a betrayal. It feels like leaving a secret unfinished. But Angi's story is finished. She is living her epilogue, one perfect practice shot at a time, a grim reminder that for every world-ending prophecy, there are 1,000 personal tragedies hidden just off the path, high in the forgotten snow. From the highest wind-scoured peaks of the Gerald Mountains, our journey now takes us to the opposite extreme. We leave the thin, freezing air of Angi's camp, a place of sharp clarity and vast, open skies, and travel to the northernmost coastline of Skyrim. We are in the hold of Winterhold, a place defined by its own spectacular slow-motion tragedy, the Great Collapse. The capital city is a fractured remnant, clinging to a cliff as if in denial. But we're not going to the city, nor to the imposing college that looms over it. We're going to the water, the Sea of Ghosts. The name itself is a warning. It is not the sea of pleasant boat rides. It's a churning, steel-grey expanse of water littered with grinding ice flows. The air here smells of salt dead fish and an ancient, profound cold. Hawkers bark mournfully on the shore, their blubbery forms the only sign of life. Most adventurers, even the mighty Dragonborn, avoid swimming here. It's slow, it's cold, the visibility is terrible, and the ever-present nibbling annoyance of slaughterfish is enough to make a warrior of legend curse and reload a save. Why bother? There are no convenient caves marked on the map, no forts to clear. There is only ice and water and the crushing, desolate silence of the north. But the Dragonborn, perhaps blessed by an Argonian's gills, or clutching a potion of water breathing, wades into the surf. The cold is a physical shock, a gasp-inducing painful embrace. They push past the shoreline, swimming out into the open grey void, leaving the fractured coast of Winterhold behind. And then they dive. Down they go into the murky green twilight. The light from the surface fades, becoming a distant, shimmering ceiling. The only sound is the muffled, rhythmic heartbeat of the Dragonborn and the faint glug-glug-glug of their own escaping breath. And in the oppressive, silent gloom, shapes begin to emerge. At first, it's just a dark mass, but as the Dragonborn swims closer, the scale becomes horrifyingly clear. It is a mast pointing upwards like a skeletal finger from the seabed. Then another, and another. Below them, littering the ocean floor, is an entire fleet of sunken ships. This is Pilgrim's Trench. This is the core in-game fact. This location is not a single shipwreck, like the ones the Dragonborn might have plundered for a quick chest. This is a mass grave. It is an armada of wooden behemoths snapped in two, their hulls breached, their rigging tangled like dead seaweed. They are scattered across a deep, scarring trench in the ocean floor, as if a giant, angry hand simply swept them from the surface and smashed them into the silt. The Dragonborn swims through this silent, drowned forest of masts and shattered hulls. Skeletons are everywhere. They are trapped in cabins, their bony hands reaching for doorways they never made it through. They are slumped over cannons, they are tangled in the anchor chains, they are half buried in the sand, they're empty. Sockets staring up at the water they've been breathing for centuries. It's a sight of profound and unsettling tragedy. The sheer number of vessels is staggering. This was no mere merchant convoy. This was an exodus, an invasion force, or a grand pilgrimage, and it met a sudden, unified and catastrophic end. It's like the Titanic had an even more depressed, magically cursed cousin who invited all his friends to the party, and the party was, unfortunately, at the bottom of the ocean. The Dragonborn can swim into the broken hulls of these ships. Inside, the water is still, and the silence is even heavier. Chests are scattered about, some spilling gold, others locked tight, guarding the treasures of people who have been dead for longer than the Dragonborn has been alive. And as the Dragonborn dutifully checks every single barnacle-encrusted urn and burial urn found on the ships, because if there's one thing we know, it's that ancient Nords loved hiding four septims and a lockpick in their funeral pottery. We are left to wonder what these ships were. This is where the obscure lore comes in. The Nords have a complex relationship with the sea. In-game books like Nords of Skyrim talk of their Atmaran ancestors crossing the Sea of Ghosts to reach Tamriel, but the sea was a terror. It was the domain of gods and monsters, a vast cold void that separated them from their frozen homeland and from the afterlife of Sovngarde. To die at sea was, for many ancient Nords, to be lost forever, your soul claimed by the water, never to reach the Hall of Valor. Pilgrim's Trench is the physical manifestation of this deep-seated cultural fear. It is a patch of sea that became a graveyard, confirming every terrifying legend sailors whispered in the taverns of Dawnstar. The name itself, Pilgrim's Trench, is the only clue we're given, and it has fueled endless fan debate. What was this pilgrimage? One popular theory suggests this fleet was not ancient. It was a fleet of ships carrying refugees from the east, perhaps Dwemer fleeing the eruption of Red Mountain, or Nords from the outer islands all seeking sanctuary in Skyrim. They were making a pilgrimage to a new life, only to be caught in a freak storm or perhaps a rogue tidal wave, one possibly caused by the same magical instabilities that would later lead to the great collapse of Winterhold just up the coast. The college, after all, has always been blamed for the region's woes. Another more popular theory is that this was an ancient fleet, maybe even one that predates Ysgramor. Perhaps it was an earlier, failed attempt to flee a dying Atmora, or more tantalizingly, it was a fleet of devout Nords on a religious quest, perhaps to find the lost continent itself, or to perform a ritual in the deep ocean, and they were struck down by a creature. Legends of giant krakens and other unnamed sea monsters are common in Tamrielic lore. Perhaps this fleet met something that saw their pilgrimage as an invasion of its territory. The game gives no answers. The ships and their skeletal crews keep their secrets. The Dragonborn gathers what they can: gold, gems, a forgotten enchanted sword, but the loot feels secondary. It's a wonderful place for a swim. 1010 would recommend if your idea of a good time is getting hypothermia while visiting an aquatic mass grave. The Dragonborn's lungs are burning, or their potion is wearing off. They kick towards the surface, breaking through into the cold, sharp air with a gasp. They pull themselves onto a nearby ice floe, shivering, dripping, and look out at the seemingly peaceful water. Below them, unseen and unremembered by the world, hundreds of souls lie in their watery coffins. Like Angi's solitary camp, Pilgrim's Trench is a story written into the landscape itself, a wound on the world that asks nothing of the player except to be witnessed and to be remembered. Wading out of the sea of ghosts, our Dragonborn is soaked, frozen, and probably rethinking their life choices, or at least their decision to explore the world's least hospitable swimming pool. They return to the relative safety of Winterhold, the air sharp with magic and the salty spray from the cliffs below. The college looms, a beacon of arcane knowledge, its graceful bridges spanning chasms that dip into the fog. It's a place of order, of study, of intellect. But we are not going to the library. We are not going to the Archmage's quarters. We're going, quite literally, beneath it all. In the main courtyard, near the Hall of Attainment, there is a simple, unassuming trapdoor in the stone. Most students, wrapped up in their lofty ambitions of mastering destruction magic or enchanting their boots to be slightly less squeaky, hurry right past it. But the Dragonborn, whose entire career is built on poking their nose where it is expressly not wanted, lifts the heavy metal ring. A wave of cold, musty air rises to meet them. It smells of old ice, of dust, and something else. A faint coppery tang like old blood and the ozone stink of magic gone wrong. This is the entrance to the Midden. If the College of Winterhold is the pristine, well-lit showroom of a high-end magic dealership, the Midden is the grease-stained, rat-infested garage out back where the real, dirty work gets done. The Dragonborn descends the ladder into a series of rough-hewn ice tunnels. The architecture is a bizarre mix of ancient Nordic stone and raw, frozen earth, as if the college's builders just gave up halfway down. This is where the magical runoff goes. This is the core in-game fact. The Midden is the college's underbelly, a sprawling dark network of tunnels used for waste, storage, and the kind of experiments the faculty would rather not sign their names to. As the Dragonborn navigates the icy corridors, they pass skeletons frozen into the walls, failed test subjects perhaps. They encounter the lingering ghostly remains of summoned Atronachs, bound and then forgotten, still patrolling their designated routes with mindless loyalty. The centerpiece of this magical sewer system is the Atronach Forge. It's a strange, Daedric-looking device that allows a mage to combine bizarre ingredients, like ruined books, salt piles, and rare gems, to summon and bind Atronachs, or even to craft Daedric equipment. It's a place of dangerous transactional magic, tucked away where the general student body can't accidentally summon a scamp and lose a finger, or, their soul. It's the magical equivalent of building a nuclear reactor in your high school's boiler room. What could possibly go wrong? But the Dragonborn pushes past the forge deeper into the dark. They enter an area known as the Midden Dark, where the ice gives way to crumbling ancient stone. It feels older than the college, older perhaps than Winterhold itself, and here, in a circular chamber, they find a hand. A large, metallic, and distinctly Daedric-looking gauntlet protruding from a stone altar. In the centre of its palm is a keyhole. Before it, on the floor, are strange sigils and a locked door, ominous and silent. It's a setup, it's a test, it's a trap, it's probably all three. The key to the chest containing the necessary items is nearby, found on a forgotten investigator's body. Inside the chest are 4 rings, each named: Trebor's Cursed Ring, Katarina's Ring, Balwin's Ring, and Pithican's Ring. There is also an incident report. Herein lies the obscure tidbit, the narrative that most players, even if they find the gauntlet, never piece together. The report details a minor incident involving 4 apprentice mages who, in their infinite wisdom, decided to skip Introduction to Conjuration and jump straight to summoning powerful sentient Daedra and trying to boss them around. It went predictably, horribly. The report is written in the sterile, passive-aggressive legalese of a college administrator trying to cover the institution's assets, It mentions the students are no longer with the college and that the experiment has been contained. Contained. Not cleaned up, not dealt with, just contained. The rings belong to those 4 students. The gauntlet is the lock and the rings are the key. The Dragonborn, driven by that special brand of catastrophic curiosity that defines all great heroes, places the 4 rings upon the fingers of the gauntlet. There is a grinding sound, a click. The rings are consumed in a flash of light, and the door to the small chamber creaks open. Inside there is no great treasure. There is only a Dwemer. He stands there clad in Daedric armour, looking bored, annoyed even. This is relaxation. He doesn't immediately attack. He speaks, and he tells a story very different from the official college report. He claims he's a Dwemer pirate lord, a buccaneer of the plains, and that those 4 idiot apprentices didn't just fail to summon him, they succeeded and then double-crossed him, trapping him in this magical cage for what to him has been an agonizingly long time. The proving, as the college might see it, is just a prison. He offers the Dragonborn a deal, a classic Daedric bargain. The Dragonborn has 2 choices. They can be the college's janitor, finishing the job by killing him. He'll fight, of course, and if he dies, the Dragonborn can take his, frankly, pretty underwhelming Daedric weapon. Or the Dragonborn can be a fellow buccaneer. They can pull the lever, break his bindings, and set him free. In exchange for this professional courtesy, relaxation will share the location of his hidden treasure, a hoard he stashed on the mortal plane before he was so rudely interrupted. This, of course, is where the fan community starts arguing. Who is relaxation? Is he just a random Dwemer or something more? Some theories connect his pirate persona to the uncharted waters of Oblivion, suggesting he's a servant of an unnamed deep plane prince, or perhaps even a renegade from Hermaeus Mora's domain, stealing knowledge instead of gold. The more pressing debate is the moral one. Do you trust a Daedra? Spoiler, no. Do you unleash a powerful, clearly malevolent entity back into the Orbis just for the promise of loot? Spoiler, yes, obviously. Have you met the Dragonborn? They'd sell Tamriel for a unique helmet. Let's assume the Dragonborn, ever the pragmatist, pulls the lever. Relaxation laughs, calls them a sharp one, and vanishes in a flash of sulphur and broken promises, teleporting back to his home plane. He leaves behind a map, a treasure map. The Dragonborn follows this map, which leads them out of the midden, out of the college, and to a desolate, unmarked spot on the icy coastline, not far from Pilgrim's Trench, actually. There, buried in the snow near a statue of Talos, is a chest. It contains a decent haul of gold, uncut gems, and some enchanted gear. It's a pirate's booty. It's fine. It's not world-changing, but it's more than the single sword Velek would have dropped. The Dragonborn stands on the cold shore, the wind whipping their cloak, the reward in their pocket. The real prize, as always, was the secret. It was the act of uncovering the college's dirty laundry, of finding the ghosts of 4 ambitious students who flew too close to the sun, and of making a handshake deal with a Daedric pirate lord. They walk back to the college, the professors and students passing by, blissfully unaware that the Dragonborn just finished a century-old incident report and that somewhere, planes away, Relaxation is probably laughing at them all. Our journey takes us away from the hallowed, if hypocritical, halls of the College of Winterhold, but we do not leave its freezing, desolate hold. We are still in the domain of ice and secrets, travelling the coastline, a lonely figure against a backdrop of grey sea and greyer sky. Between the flickering ethereal lights of the aurora, the Dragonborn spies a small, unassuming island. It's not far from the coast, somewhere in the frigid waters between Dawnstar and Winterhold. It is, like so many places on our list, utterly unremarkable from a distance. A small, snow-covered rock, perhaps home to a few hawkers. There is no quest here, no Jarl's bounty, no rumour in a tavern to guide the way. There is only the explorer's instinct, that nagging voice that whispers, "There's probably a cave on that." There is. A dark gash in the ice, its name carved on a weathered wooden sign, Ingvild. The name itself is ancient Nordic, suggesting a barrow or a tomb. The Dragonborn, no doubt expecting the usual, a few draugr, a word wall and some disappointing loot in an urn, pushes inside. The cold is immediate, but it's not the damp natural cold of an ice cavern. It's a still, dry, dead cold. The air is heavy. The first few chambers seem typical, icy tunnels, a bit of crumbling Nordic masonry. But then, the Dragonborn sees her. A ghost. She's pale, shimmering, and translucent, clad in simple robes. She's not the spectral blue of a Sovngarde shade or a Barrow's guardian. She is different. She drifts aimlessly down a corridor, her hands clasped, her head bowed. As the Dragonborn approaches, she doesn't attack. She doesn't speak. She just weeps. Her sobs are silent, an expression of pure, unending sorrow. It's unsettling. Then, around a corner, there's another, and another. The cave is filled with them, a dozen or more female ghosts, all weeping, all drifting, all trapped in a silent private hell. This is Yngvild. And the core in-game fact of this place is a story so dark, so personally depraved, that the game doesn't even give you a quest for it. It just leaves the evidence, trusting you to be horrified. As the Dragonborn navigates this labyrinth of sorrow, they begin to find journals. The Yngvild journals, volumes 1 through 4. They are written in a neat, arrogant, and increasingly unhinged hand. They are the property of a man named Arundel. Arundel, the journals explain, was an Altmer mage, a student at the College of Winterhold, just a stone's throw across the water, but he was expelled. His interests, as he puts it, were deemed unorthodox and inappropriate by the fools and lesser minds on the faculty. His field of study? Necromancy. But Arundel wasn't interested in the grand, boring work of reanimating skeletons for manual labour or even for battle. His interest was companionship. His first journal entry describes his loneliness, his frustration with the living, who he finds flawed, loud, and disappointing. He sought to create a purer form of existence. His second journal details his early experiments. He reanimated the dead, but the Draugr were imperfect. They were mindless, ugly, and they smelled. He wanted beauty. He wanted company. So he came here, to this remote island, to perfect his art. He began luring women from Dawnstar, or perhaps simply abducting them. His prose is delicately evasive, to his new home. His third and fourth journals are where the story descends into pure, skin-crawling horror. He had a breakthrough. He realised he could kill them, yes, but more, he could bind their spirits. He wasn't just a necromancer, he was a serial killer and a soul slaver. He called them his daughters of the cold, his lovely companions, his harem. The journals are a sickening blend of delusional romantic prose and the cold, technical notes of a monster. He boasts of their beauty, their perfect obedience, their undying, a grim intentional pun, devotion. The ghosts the Dragonborn has been passing. They are his collection. As the Dragonborn pushes deeper, this context makes the environment 1,000 times more disturbing. The ghosts are not just wandering, they are placed. Some stand in alcoves like statues. Some are forced to patrol corridors, his lovely sentries. Some are in his private chambers, floating around his bed, his table, his throne. He has decorated his home with the enslaved weeping souls of his victims. He is the ultimate grotesque collector, a man who, when faced with rejection by the living, decided to build a perfect, controllable, and utterly broken family from the dead. The Dragonborn finally enters the main chamber. There sits Arundel, the master of Yngvild. He's a robed Altmer, arrogant to the last. He may sneer, "You've come to join my collection," or "Leave this place. These are my private affairs and I will not be disturbed." He is, of course, a powerful necromancer, and when the Dragonborn draws their weapon, he does the final despicable thing. He summons his daughters to defend him. The weeping, passive ghosts are suddenly forced into aggression, their hands crackling with frost magic, their faces still etched in that silent scream of sorrow. The Dragonborn is forced to cut them down, to kill these already dead victims, to disperse their forms so they can reach the monster who controls them. This is where the obscure lore becomes critical. In the Elder Scrolls, a ghost isn't just an image, it's a soul, or a fragment of one, anchored to the mortal plane. Usually this is by intense emotion, a desire for revenge, a great love, or a terrible trauma. Arundel's magic is a perversion of this. He has artificially created that anchor, binding the souls of these women not just to the place, but to his will. He has stolen their afterlife. In-game books on soul binding, like the rare Souls of the Damned, hint at this kind of magic, often practiced by Daedric lords like Molag Bal, who enslaves the souls of mortals in Cold Harbour. Arundel is a mortal who has successfully replicated a Daedric prince's favourite hobby on a small, disgustingly personal scale. The final brutal confrontation ends with Arendel's death. He falls, and a profound silence, heavier than any before, falls over Ingvild. And then, one by one, the ghosts stop. They cease their attacks. They cease their weeping. They cease their endless prescribed patrols. They shimmer, turn towards the Dragonborn, perhaps in gratitude, perhaps in confusion. And then they fade. They just dissipate. This is the subject of the fan debate. What happened to them? Did killing Arundel break the magical chains and finally allow their souls to travel to Aetherius, to their proper afterlife? Or were their souls so damaged, so twisted and bound by Arendel's depraved magic that they were broken? Did the Dragonborn's final killing of them, followed by the death of their master, simply cause their tormented essences to disintegrate, to be truly and finally annihilated? The game, in its masterful grim ambiguity, never says. There is no quest-complete fanfare, no souls-freed message in the corner of the screen, just silence. The Dragonborn stands alone in the ice cave, the journals of a madman in their satchel, the treasure in Arendel's chambers, some gold, some soul gems. The irony. Feels like blood money. Leaving Ingvild, the biting fresh air of the northern coast, feels like a blessing. It's a location that punishes curiosity with a story of profound personal evil. It's a reminder that not all monsters in Skyrim have fangs and claws. Some of the worst are just men, or mer. Driven by a loneliness so vast and so selfish, it seeks to fill its void by creating an eternity of suffering for everyone else. We leave the haunted, tragic ice of Ingvild behind, our minds still unsettled by the quiet, personal horrors we uncovered. We travel east, crossing the border from the Pale into Eastmarch, the land of geysers, hot springs, and the rebellious, mead-soaked city of Windhelm. The Dragonborn is travelling the main roads, a welcome change from swimming in frozen oceans or scaling unmarked cliffs. They are somewhere south of the city, in the volcanic tundra that defines the hold. The air smells of sulphur and damp earth. They pass a giant's camp giving the mammoths a wide berth, and then they see it. It's a bizarre sight. A massive, ornate golden sphere half buried in the rock. It's unmistakably Dwemer, made of that strange golden bronze metal that seems immune to age, rust, and the passing of millennia. It is, for lack of a better term, a giant dwarven ball. A few bandits mill around it, having set up a pathetic little camp, as if proximity to this grand alien object might somehow improve their fortunes. It hasn't. The Dragonborn, as is their habit, clears them out with a few shouts and a swing of their mace. Now they can investigate. The structure is called Kagrenzel. The name itself is pure Dwemerous, hinting at its origins. This is the core in-game fact. Kagrenzel is not a dungeon in the traditional sense. It's a trap. A glorious, elaborate, and utterly terrifying one. As the Dragonborn enters the main chamber, they find a vast, echoing space. The golden sphere is the dominant feature, and in the centre of the room there is a small pedestal. On it rests a single, glowing orb, similar to the sphere outside but small enough to hold. It's a classic Take the Idol setup. It's the Raiders of the Lost Ark boulder, but reimagined by insane steampunk fantasy engineers. The Dragonborn, who has apparently learned nothing from, well, anything, approaches the pedestal. They look at the orb. It's beautiful, pulsing with a soft, warm light. It hums. It practically screams, "Do not touch me. I am obviously connected to a mechanism of doom." So naturally the Dragonborn touches it. The moment their fingers brush the orb, a series of things happen at once. A deafening metallic clang echoes through the chamber. The orb flares with blinding white light. And then, most alarmingly, a cage, a spherical Dwemer cage, slams down from the ceiling, trapping the Dragonborn in the centre of the room. The music swells, a high-pitched, frantic, panicked violin score. The entire room begins to shake, the sound of ancient gears grinding to life, a sound not heard since the First Era. And then, the floor opens. The Dragonborn trapped in their little metal hamster ball plummets. They fall and fall and fall. It is, without question, the single deepest, most terrifying plunge in the entire game. It's a seemingly endless drop down a colossal vertical stone and metal shaft. The Dragonborn can do nothing but watch as the tiny patch of light that was the entrance to Kagrenzel disappears into a pinprick, and they are swallowed by the deep, deep earth. This isn't a press a button, see a new area kind of fall. This is a scream until your lungs give out kind of fall. It lasts for an agonizingly long time, long enough for the player to wonder if they've broken the game, if they've fallen through the map and into the void of code beneath. Finally, just as the Dragonborn is resigning themselves to a messy, splattery end, the cage splashes down hard into a deep underground lake. The impact is jarring. The cage dissolves, or retracts. The Dragonborn surfaces gasping in a colossal dark cavern. They are, to put it mildly, not in Kansas anymore. They are in Blackreach. Well, not quite. They are in a part of Blackreach, a small, isolated cave that leads to Blackreach. But first, they have to survive the welcoming committee. As their eyes adjust to the dim, bioluminescent glow, figures begin to shuffle out of the dark. They are pale, blind, hunched, and chittering. Falmer. A lot of Falmer. The fall was just the preamble. The trap wasn't just to catch an intruder, it was to feed them to the current, debased residents of the deep. Kagrenzel is a Dwemer-built, Falmer-operated garbage disposal. The Dragonborn fights their way through the chittering horde, their armour still dripping from the subterranean lake. They push through the tunnels, which eventually and impressively open up into the main, vast, silent expanse of Blackreach proper, near the ruined city of Silent City. But the memory of that fall lingers. This is where the obscure lore fasten, and it of course sparks a major fan debate. What was Kagrenzel? Why build a trap of such magnificent, terrifying, and frankly, inefficient proportions? The Dwemer were not known for their jokes. They were a people of logic, of reason, of science. One theory suggests Kagrenzel wasn't a trap at all, not originally. It was an elevator. The Dwemer, in their vast, interconnected underground empire, needed ways to move goods and people from the surface to Blackreach quickly. Kagrenzel was perhaps a high-speed, magnetically propelled, or ethereally propelled transport shaft. The glowing orb was the on switch. The cage was a safety precaution. After the Dwemer vanished, the system broke. The anti-gravity or ethereal brakes failed, turning a high-speed elevator ride into a one-way trip to near-certain death. A darker theory, and one that fits the Dwemer's personality much better, is that it was always a trap. But it wasn't for bandits, it was for Falmer. After they blinded and enslaved the snow elves, the Dwemer would have needed ways to manage their livestock. Perhaps Kagrenzel was a disposal unit for unruly Falmer, a way to drop them from one level of their domain to a lower, inescapable one. Or more cruelly, it was a game. They would lure surface dwellers, or perhaps their own internal criminals, into the sphere and sentence them to the depths, dropping them into the Falmer nests for their own cold scientific amusement. This ties into the obscure lore of Dwemer cruelty. We see their automatons, and we think robots. But in-game texts like the Ethereum Wars and the physical evidence in their ruins show a people obsessed with soul-binding, unethical experiments and a profound racial arrogance. They didn't just enslave the Falmer, they remade them, blinding them, feeding them toxic fungi, the glowing mushrooms of Blackreach, that devolved them. Kagrenzel's trap is perfectly in keeping with this. It's an act of cold, calculated, and needlessly elaborate cruelty. It's pure Dwemer. The Dragonborn, having found their way out of the Falmer den, stands on a ledge overlooking the vast, silent, mushroom-filled cathedral of Blackreach. They look up, but they can't see the ceiling. They are miles beneath the earth, in a hidden, beautiful, and monstrous world. They got here not by finding a well-marked dungeon entrance, but by being curious enough to touch a shiny ball, and then paying for it with a fall that nearly stopped their heart. It's a moment of pure, unadulterated Skyrim, the game punishing you and rewarding you in the exact same terrifying instant. Climbing out of the suffocating, mushroom-scented darkness of Blackreach is an ordeal in itself. The Dragonborn eventually finds a rattling, Dwemer-built elevator that groans in protest before depositing them, blinking and covered in Falmer detritus, back on the surface. The sun. It's a glorious, painful, beautiful thing. After the terror of the Kagrenzel plunge and the oppressive ancient silence of the deep, the Dragonborn has a newfound appreciation for simple things, like the sky and wind, and not being hunted by blind, chittering cannibals. They need a change of scenery. They need to be somewhere high, but this time by choice. So they travel west, across the entire breadth of Skyrim, from the volcanic tundra of Eastmarch, through the central plains of Whiterun, and into the jagged, violent and vertical landscape of the Reach. The Reach is a land that seems to be in a constant state of falling down. The rocks are sharp, the cliffs are sheer, and the native populace, the Forsworn, are perpetually angry about, well, pretty much everything, and to be fair, they have their reasons. They decorate their homes with sticks and bones and have a shoot-on-sight policy for anyone not similarly adorned. It's a charming place. The Dragonborn is navigating this perilous grey-brown maze of canyons, following the Karth River. They're not looking for a dungeon, not really. They are just following the sound of water, a growing thunderous roar that promises a significant landmark. They fight their way through a nest of Forsworn at a place called Lost Valley Redoubt, a truly impressive fortress built into the cliffs, and as they clear the final feather-clad brigand, they find what they were looking for. It's a waterfall. But waterfall is a laughably insufficient word. It is a colossal, roaring, deafening torrent of water plunging hundreds, perhaps thousands, of feet into a pool so far below it looks like a coin, and jutting out over this precipice, from the very lip of the falls, is a long, narrow wooden plank. It's a diving board into oblivion. This is Bard's Leap Summit. The name is a clue, but the setup is a dare. The Dragonborn walks carefully out to the end of the plank. The wood is slick with spray. The roar of the water is so loud it's a physical pressure, a vibration in the chest. The wind up here is tremendous, pulling at their cloak, threatening to send them tumbling into the white, churning void. Far below, the pool shimmers, surrounded by rocks that look from this height like very sharp, very fatal landing pads. There is no quest marker. No one told them to come here. There is only the plank, the fall, and the absurdly optimistic name. This is the core in-game fact. The Dragonborn is presented with a choice. Turn around, go back to killing Forsworn and chalk this up to a nice view. Or they can jump. They can, with no magical assistance, no become ethereal shout, no potion of slow fall, just leap. The Dragonborn, of course, jumps. It's a moment of pure, exhilarating stupidity. The stomach drops. The roar of the waterfall is replaced by the shriek of wind. The Dragonborn falls end over end, a tiny flailing figure against a massive canvas of rock and water. It's a longer fall than Kagrenzel's, or at least it feels longer, because this time there is no cage. This time there is just the cold, hard certainty of physics. The player, no doubt, is clenching everything, already hearing the crunch of bones and the sad, descending whoop 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 of the reload save music. And then, splash! They hit the water. It's a hard, stinging impact, but it's water. It's deep, impossibly, miraculously deep. The Dragonborn has survived. They surface, gasping for air in the churning, spray-filled pool at the bottom of the falls. Their heart is hammering. They've done it. They've faced the ultimate "what if I jumped?" and won. They swim to the small, rocky shore, pulling themselves out of the water, shaking their head like a wet dog. And as their vision clears, they realise they are not alone. Standing on the rocks, looking at them with an expression of spectral amusement, is a ghost. He's clad in the fine, colourful silks of a bard. He is translucent, glowing with a soft blue light. He is not a weeping, tormented soul like the victims in Ingvild. He is content. He's clapping, slowly. This is the ghost of Azadal. He speaks, his voice an echo over the roar of the falls. He congratulates the Dragonborn. Not for saving the world or for killing a dragon, but for having the sheer, glorious, story-worthy style to make that leap. As a reward for this act of panache, he says, he will share a story, a lesson. And with that, the Dragonborn feels a new spark of understanding. Their speech skill is permanently increased. The bard, having found a kindred spirit in recklessness, fades away with a final, appreciative nod. This is where the obscure lore provides context. Bards in the Elder Scrolls are not just the foppish, lute-strumming annoyances found in taverns, as taught in the Bard's College in Solitude, and as evidenced by in-game books like the Song of the Alchemists, a true bard is an adventurer, a lore master, and a chronicler. They believe that stories must be earned. You cannot sing of a heroic leap unless you, or someone you trust, has made it. Azadal wasn't just a performer, he was a living embodiment of this creed. This leap was his final, greatest performance, an act of such audacious, magnificent folly that it literally imprinted his spirit onto the location. And this leads to the fan debate. What is Azadal? Is it his actual sentient soul, waiting patiently by a pool for millennia, hoping someone else is dumb enough to jump? That's a very boring afterlife. Or is the ghost an echo? A popular theory in the tease community is that intense emotional events, like a wedding, a great battle, or a bard's masterpiece suicide leap can stain the world, leaving a recording behind. The Dragonborn's act of recreating the leap, of matching Azadal's own emotional frequency of, "Oh God, this is high, but what a story," is what plays the recording. The Dragonborn isn't being taught by a ghost, they are being inspired by the memory of the ghost. Azadal's legend, his final perfect story, is so powerful that it literally empowers others who walk in his footsteps, or jump in his air current. The Dragonborn is left alone. They are soaking wet, freezing, and now slightly better at haggling with Belethor. It's a profoundly weird, magical, and fitting reward. The game didn't ask them to jump. It provided no safety net. It just built a plank and a waterfall, and trusted that the player's inner voice of chaos would do the rest. The Dragonborn, looking up at the impossible height from which they fell, now has to find the long, winding, and completely unglamorous path back up. But they walk with a bard's swagger. They didn't just find a location, they became part of its story. After the heart-stopping, magnificent, and frankly idiotic plunge at Bard's Leap Summit, the Dragonborn is, for the time being, quite done with waterfalls. They are still wringing the water out of their fur-lined boots, and the ghost of Azadal's applause is a faint, mocking echo in their ears. They need something calmer. They need a nice, quiet walk in the woods. So they travel north to the most civilized of the 9 holds, Harfingar, the seat of imperial power, home to the grand capital city of Solitude. The Dragonborn isn't headed for the Blue Palace, however. They aren't interested in the political squabbles of Jarl Elisif. They are wandering the deep, temperate forests that blanket the hold, just exploring. This is, in itself, a rare activity. Most adventurers in this region are on a mission. They're marching to Solitude, they're joining the Legion, or they're clearing out the nearby Potema's catacombs. They don't just meander. The forests here are old, full of towering pines and thick undergrowth, but they lack the dramatic, jagged malice of the Reach or the icy desolation of the north. It's just a forest, and it's in this mundane, boring landscape that the greatest secrets are often kept. The Dragonborn is walking a ridgeline somewhere northwest of the city, not far from the coast. There is no path. There is no helpful ruin on the compass. There is only a sense of, I haven't been in this specific square foot of woods before. And then they see it. Or rather, they almost don't see it. It's a crack in a rock face. A vertical fissure, heavily veiled by hanging moss and overgrown ivy. It doesn't look like a dungeon entrance. It looks like a place a fox would hide. But the Dragonborn's insatiable, all-consuming what's in there instinct takes over. They push aside the curtain of green, and the game's prompt appears, Shadow Green Cavern. They enter, a loading screen. They expect a cave. They expect darkness, dripping water, maybe a few bears, and the inevitable, disappointing cluster of glowing mushrooms. They step through the short, dark tunnel, and they are blinded. Not by darkness, but by light. The Dragonborn has not entered a cave. They have entered a world. It is a colossal, perfectly circular sinkhole, a giant, deep bowl carved into the earth, but it is entirely open to the sky. Sunlight streams down, illuminating a scene of impossible, prehistoric vibrancy. It is green. It is the greenest place in Skyrim. The air is thick, humid and heavy, smelling of chlorophyll, rich soil, and 1,000 blooming flowers. Ancient, gnarled trees, the likes of which don't grow on the surface, twist up towards the sun. Ferns as tall as a Nord cover the ground. The water in the central pool is so clear, so pure, it shimmers. And the sound. The air is alive with the chime of nirnroot. Not one or two, dozens. The entire grotto is thrumming with their song. This is the core in-game fact. Shadowgreen Cavern is a unique, hidden biome. It's an alchemist's dream, a perfect self-contained terrarium where rare ingredients grow in absurd abundance. The Dragonborn sees it all. Deathbell, Nightshade, swamp fungal pods, and nirnroot, all growing side by side in a glorious botanical paradise. It's a lost world, a secret garden hidden from the ice and snow of the surface. The Dragonborn, their alchemical fingers twitching, steps forward to pluck a particularly vibrant-looking flower, and the forest objects. The bark on a nearby tree trunk seems to shimmer. It separates, unfolding like a dry wooden flower, and a green, ethereal form steps out. A spriggan. Its eyes glow with a dull, territorial malice. As the Dragonborn reaches for their sword, another emerges from a mossy log, and a third from the pool itself. The grotto is not a garden, it's a nursery, and the Dragonborn has just been identified as a particularly aggressive, heavily armoured pest. The fight in Shadowgreen Cavern is unlike any other. It's not a linear dungeon crawl, it's a chaotic 360-degree brawl in a beautiful sunlit arena. The Spriggans screech, their high-pitched, woody sound echoing off the rock walls. They are not alone. This, as every player knows, is the Spriggans' most infuriating ability. One of them raises its hands, and a green, shimmering energy flows out. A nearby cave bear, which the Dragonborn had previously mistaken for a sleepy, picturesque addition to the scenery, rears up with a roar, its eyes glowing green. It charges the Dragonborn. A saber cat, previously unseen, leaps from a high ledge, also charmed. The Spriggans, the supposed guardians of nature, are perfectly happy to use that nature as a furry, disposable meat shield. The Dragonborn is suddenly fighting for their life, dodging bears, slashing at cats, and trying to land a blow on the Spriggans, who are maddeningly elusive. They teleport in short, shimmering bursts. They heal themselves, that green energy reknitting their woody flesh. And when the Dragonborn finally lands a killing blow, the Spriggan doesn't die. It crouches, collapsing into a broken state, only for a Spriggan matron, a larger, more gnarled creature, to raise its hands and revive it. It's a magical game of whack-a-mole, but the moles have razor-sharp claws and can summon apex predators to eat your face. This is where the obscure lore of Spriggans becomes vital. What are these creatures? In-game books like The Heretic of Verdant's Guile are often dismissed as religious texts, but they hint at the truth. Spriggans are not people, they are nature spirits, minor Aedra, physical manifestations of the will of Kinnereth, or Kine to the Nords. They are the immune system of the green. And that item the Dragonborn rips from their bodies, the Spriggan taproot, isn't just a potion ingredient. It's their heart seed, the physical anchor of their spiritual energy. This grotto, then, is a place of immense natural power, a font of Kinnereth's energy. It's not just a home for Spriggans, it's a place where they are born. The Dragonborn hasn't just trespassed, they've stumbled into a sacred maternity ward with a drawn sword, and the midwives are, quite reasonably, trying to murder them. This naturally leads to the community debate. What created Shadowgreen Cavern? The game offers no explanation, it's just there. The most common fan theory is that this is an Eilnafe remnant. It's a creation-era scar, a place where the rules of the world are slightly different. Before the Nords, before the Elves, before the world was tamed, all of Tamriel might have been this vibrant, this magical, this wild. Shadowgreen, then, is a tiny, perfect and terrifying echo of that lost, premortal world. Another theory suggests it's a magical blessing, or ward, placed by Kinnereth herself, a hidden sanctuary to protect her children from the mortals who are so busy building cities and waging wars. It's a literal divine nature preserve. The Dragonborn finally cuts down the last Spriggan matron. The charmed animals, their eyes clearing, either drop dead or run in confusion. The silence is sudden and almost violent. The only sound is the chiming of the nirnroot, which now sounds less like a song and more like an alarm. The grotto is still beautiful, but it's now a beautiful corpse. The guardians are gone. The Dragonborn, ever the pragmatist, catches their breath, and then begins the harvest. They walk from flower to flower, from mushroom to fungus, their satchels filling with a king's ransom of alchemical reagents. They came in a warrior, and are walking out as a walking, heavily armoured branch of the Hag's Cure in Markarth. They find the exit, a small, dark tunnel on the far side, and emerge, blinking, back into the normal forest of Harfingar. The air feels thin and sterile. They have plundered a secret, violated a sanctuary, and have the ingredients for about 200 high-powered healing potions to show for it. It's a perfect, bittersweet Skyrim moment. The vibrant, humming, and frankly violent green of Shadowgreen Cavern fades into memory. The Dragonborn's pouches are heavy with Nirnroot, Deathbell, and the taproots of the grotto's unfortunate guardians. They are at this point a walking, clanking, heavily armed apothecary, and with this newfound, ill-gotten wealth of ingredients, they return to the civilized world, or at least to the closest thing this frozen part of the world has to it, the Hold of Winterhold. We've been here before. We've seen the icy shipwrecks in Pilgrim's Trench. We've delved into the magical sewers of the Midden. But this time, the Dragonborn isn't here as an explorer or as a student. They are here as a criminal. Perhaps in a fit of experimental glee, the Dragonborn accidentally cast a high-level illusion spell in the middle of the Frozen Hearth Tavern, causing the patrons to flee in panic. Perhaps they were just practicing their unrelenting force shout and a particularly disagreeable guard got in the way. Or perhaps, in a moment of pure kleptomaniacal instinct, they were caught trying to steal Jarl Career's fork. The crime itself is irrelevant. The point is, they are caught. The screen fades to black. A guard informs them that their adventuring days are over and that they are being hauled off to jail. The Dragonborn awakes. They are not in a cosy cell beneath a Jarl's palace. They are not in a military stockade. They are in a cave, a raw, dripping and unbelievably cold ice cave. The cell door is a single, rusted iron gate set into the ice. The wind howls not outside but inside the prison. This, the Dragonborn learns, is the official jail of Winterhold. It's called, with a grim and pointed lack of imagination, the Chill. This is the core in-game fact. The Chill is without a doubt the worst prison in Skyrim. It's not a building, it's a hole in the ground. It's located on a freezing, isolated island just north of the college, exposed to the absolute worst weather the Sea of Ghosts has to offer, and it has no guards. Or rather, the guards are not mortals. Jarl Career, in his infinite paranoid wisdom, has staffed his prison with two bound Atronachs, a Frost Atronach and a Storm Atronach. He detests the college, yet he uses its own magic to enforce his law. It's a petty, dysfunctional and perfectly Winterhold arrangement. It's less a place of rehabilitation and more a magical cold storage unit for people who displease him. Zero Suzhou 10 would not recommend for a long-term stay. The amenities are terrible, and the staff is, well, one of them is literally made of ice, which feels redundant. The Dragonborn, shivering, looks around their new, miserable home, and they realise they are not alone. In the back of the cavern, huddled pathetically next to a tiny sputtering campfire that seems to be losing its battle against the cold, is another figure. A Dwemer, a dark elf wrapped in rags, shivering so violently it looks like he might fall apart. But it's not a normal shiver. It's a deep, painful, bone-rattling ache that doesn't stop. This is Ruurn's Lairvu. He is the only inmate. The Dragonborn, being a nosy cellmate, approaches, and Ruurn's tells his story. It is perhaps one of the most quietly tragic stories in the entire game. Ruurn's wasn't a thief. He wasn't a murderer. He was a student. He was an apprentice at the College of Winterhold, just up the cliff. He was a promising, if poor, student of alteration magic. And like so many students, he ran into a problem as old as time. He ran out of money. He needed gold for his research, for his books, for those absurdly expensive soul gems the college faculty seems to hoard. So, he took out a loan. He didn't go to a bank. He went to another Dwemer, a fixer named Orthorn. Ruurn's, in his youthful naivety, probably thought he was just dealing with a fellow countryman, a kinsman who would give him a fair rate. He was wrong. He missed a payment, and Orthorn the loan shark came to collect. But Orthorn didn't break Ruurn's legs. He didn't send hired thugs. He was a mage, and he repossessed Ruurn's collateral. He didn't take his gold. He took his warmth. Ruurn's describes it with a kind of exhausted despair. It is a curse a unique, magical and diabolically cruel one. He is now and forever cold. He can stand next to a roaring forge and he feels nothing. He can chug a dozen potions of resist frost and they do nothing. The magic has not made him weak to cold. It has stolen his body's very ability to perceive and process heat. It is a cold that comes from the inside out. It is a permanent, agonizing and incurable state of being. And then he delivers the final devastating punchline. He is in jail on purpose. After Orthorn cursed him, he was left destitute, unable to work, unable to live. He was slowly, agonizingly freezing to death on the streets of Winterhold. So he committed a petty crime. He stole some food, he says, just to be caught. He wanted to be thrown in the chill, because this miserable, dripping, Atronach-guarded ice cave is still warmer and safer than being free. At least here, there is a terrible fire and a frozen roof. He has sentenced himself to life in prison because it is the only way he can survive. This is where the obscure lore surfaces. We see magic used for war and defense. But Rurns' story gives us a glimpse into the magical underworld. This is magical racketeering. Orthorn is a magical loan shark. This isn't a Daedric pact or a grand world-ending ritual. This is the application of high-level magic for petty street-level crime. In-game lore from Morrowind, Rurns and Orthorn's homeland is full of this. The mages of House Telvanni, for example, practice a brutal magical feudalism. Magical contracts, body-altering curses, and soul-binding are just Tuesday. Rurns, a Dwemer, may have sought out a traditional source of funding only to fall victim to its traditional and horrifying consequences, and this of course has led to one of the longest-running fan debates in the Skyrim community. Why can't you help him? The Dragonborn is the archmage of the very college Rurns attended. The Dragonborn is a being who eats dragon souls and barters with Daedric princes, and yet there is no quest. You cannot find Orthorn. You cannot learn a counter-curse of ultimate warm fuzzes. You cannot give Rurns a set of enchanted thermal underwear. You can't even give him a healing potion. You can do nothing. For years, players have insisted this must be cut content. Surely there was a quest to hunt down Orthorn and get Rurns' warmth back. Modders have even created quests to fix this. But the other darker theory is that this was intentional. It's a deliberate grim narrative choice from the developers. In the vast, cold, uncaring world of Skyrim, not every problem can be solved by the Dragonborn. Some people are just broken. Some stories don't have a happy ending. Rurns Lervu is a permanent fixture of the chill, a living ghost, a testament to a system of justice as broken as the city it serves. The Dragonborn picks the lock on their cell gate, or maybe they just wait out their pathetic 10 gold bounty sentence. They stand at the mouth of the cave. The frost Atronach shimmers, unconcerned. The Dragonborn looks back at Rurns, who has not moved. He just continues to shiver, a man trapped in his own, personal, eternal winter. The Dragonborn steps out into the blinding, freezing snow of Winterhold. The cold bites at their face, and they have never been so grateful to feel it. Leaving the living death of Rurns Lervu in the frozen, hopeless confines of the chill, the Dragonborn feels a deep, internal cold that has nothing to do with the Winterhold air. Rurns' story is a splinter of ice in the mind, a problem that cannot be shouted at, a man who cannot be saved. It's a feeling of profound impotence, one that the Slayer of Alduin is not accustomed to. They need to go not just from the hold, but from the entire miserable, snow-blasted north. They travel south and then west, pushing on until the snow turns to slush, the slush to mud, and the mud to the hard, grey-brown, unforgiving rock of the Reach. We've been here before, to this vertical, angry land. We've leaped from Bardsleep Summit, dodging for Sworn to get there. Now the Dragonborn is in the northern part of the hold, not far from the mining settlement of Karthwasten. The sky is overcast, the air smells of stone and the metallic tang of the nearby silver mines. The Dragonborn is, as is their habit, simply wandering, clambering over the rocky hills, looking for anything that isn't a Forsworn brandishing a shiv made of a mammoth's rib. In a small, hidden cleft between two towering rock faces, they find a camp. It's tiny, almost invisible from the main path. A pair of bedrolls, a small cold fire pit, a knapsack. It's an unmarked location, a appearing on no map. The Dragonborn's hand drifts to their weapon. Bandits? Forsworn? But the camp is still. Too still. And then they see them. The camp's occupants. 2 skeletons. This isn't the usual centuries-old skeletons slumped against a tomb wall. These are fresh. The bones are still clean, not yet covered in moss and dirt. They are posed. One, a bit smaller, lies on one of the bedrolls as if asleep. The other, larger, is slumped on the ground beside the bedroll, one bony arm draped across the other's chest in a final protective embrace. The Dragonborn, a veteran of 1,000 dungeons, knows the look of a battle's aftermath. This is not that. This is a tableau. This is a story. This is the core in-game fact. This unmarked site is known to the community as Trius's Rest. There is no quest here. There is just this scene and the knapsack. The Dragonborn, ever the snoop, opens it. Inside there are no valuables, no gold, no gems, just a potion of brief invisibility, a potion of illusion, and 2 worn journals. One is titled Ramati's Journal, the other Trius's Journal. The Dragonborn sits. The wind whispers through the canyon, and they read. It's a story told in 2 acts, written in ink and performed by skeletons. Ramati wrote first. She was a Redguard warrior, from a noble family in Hammerfell. Her entries are full of fire and passion and rage. She writes of her skill with a blade, her love for the Alika Sands, and her profound, seething hatred for her betrothed. Her family, in keeping with ancient Redguard tradition, had promised her to some rich, old, and powerful nobleman. It was a political match, a joining of fortunes. To her family it was a duty. To Ramati it was a cage. Her journal describes her husband-to-be with blistering contempt, calling him a wrinkled old goat who cared more for his ledgers than for her. And then she writes about Trius. Trius, a Breton mage, an apprentice perhaps. He was gentle, where her world was hard. He was clever, where her world was blunt. He was, in her words, the only person who has ever seen me and not my family's name. They had fallen in love, a secret, impossible love. So, they made a plan. They would run. They would flee Hammerfell, cross the border into Skyrim, and make for the College of Winterhold, or perhaps High Rock, where they could disappear. The potions in the bag are the sad remnants of that plan. A little invisibility, a little illusion, a hope for stealth. Ramati's entries grow more frantic. They are being pursued. Her family, or her betrothed's men, are on their trail. They are not kind. They are hunters, she writes. Her final entry is a hurried, hopeful scrawl. We've been running for days. We're so close. Trius has found a small camp. We can rest. They will not find us here. I know it. Then the Dragonborn picks up Trius's journal. His entries are full of a desperate, anxious love for Ramati. He fears he is not strong enough to protect her. He writes of the pursuit of the hired killers on their trail. And then there is only one, final, long entry. It is written in a hand that is shaky, blotted and stained with what might be tears. He writes that Ramati was wrong. They were found. The pursuers, a half-dozen of them, stormed the camp. Trius, the apprentice, writes that something in him broke. He unleashed everything, a storm of fire and ice, a rage he didn't know he possessed. Apparently, apprentice was a bit of an understatement. Or maybe watching the person you love get threatened is just a really significant buff to your destruction skill. He killed them all. But he was too late. An arrow had struck Ramati in the chest. She died in his arms there on the bedroll. Trius's entry dissolves into pure, incoherent grief. He writes that he cannot, will not, live in a world that does not have her in it. He calls the world a cold, grey void, a place without light. A turn of phrase that makes the Dragonborn think for a moment of Ruan's Lervu and the different kinds of cold that can kill a person. Trius writes that he has one last potion, not one of illusion, a poison, a potent one, he says. He will lie down next to her and they will rest as they had planned. His last words are not for the world, they are for her. I am coming, my love. The Dragonborn lowers the journal. They look at the scene, the skeleton on the bedroll, the skeleton beside it, arm draped protectively, and next to the second skeleton's hand, a small, empty, dark-coloured vial. This is where the obscure lore provides the brutal context. A Redguard, Noblewoman running from an arranged marriage is not just a family spat. As in-game texts like the Redguards and A Guide to Hammerfell explain, Redguard society is built on a rigid, ancient system of honour, duty and unbreakable contracts. For Ramati to flee was an act of profound dishonour to her entire lineage. The men pursuing her weren't just bounty hunters, they were retribution. They were there to cleanse the family's honour, which, in all likelihood, meant bringing her back dead and her corruptor, Trius, along with her. Their love was doomed from the start, not by fate, but by culture. And this, of course, fuels the fan discussion. Like Rern's, this is a tragedy the Dragonborn arrives at too late to fix. The debate isn't about what happened, but why it's here. Is it just a random, sad environmental story? Or is it, like so many other things, the corpse of a cut quest? Players have long theorised that there was meant to be a way to find Trius and Ramati alive, perhaps a quest to escort them, to fight off the pursuers, to give them their happy ending. But in the final game, we get only the epilogue. We are the ones who find the bodies, who read the note, who are left with the silence. The Dragonborn stands. What to do? They can loot the bodies, but there is nothing to take. They can take the journals. But why? To give to whom? The world has forgotten them. Perhaps the kindest thing to do is to simply let them be. They place the journals back in the knapsack and place the knapsack gently between the two skeletons. They are at last at rest. It is a grim, quiet, and powerful reminder that for every world-saving epic the Dragonborn is starring in, there are 1,000 small human love stories and tragedies playing out, and ending in the hidden corners of the world. The silence of Trius's rest is a heavy, cold thing. The Dragonborn leaves the two skeletons to their eternal, quiet embrace, a small, unmarked monument to a love story that ended in poison and sorrow. It's a heavy burden, being the world's sole witness to so many final chapters. It's enough to make one want to do something simple, something straightforward, something predictable, like finding a bandit camp and introducing them to the business end of a Daedric warhammer. The Dragonborn travels east, leaving the jagged vertical misery of the Reach and entering the wide rolling central plains of Whiterun Hold. They are in the western part of the Hold, not far from the border with the Reach. The landscape is still rocky, a rolling tundra dotted with purple mountain flowers and tundra cotton, and then they see it, a familiar, almost comforting sight, a giant's camp. The familiar spiralling painted stones, the massive bonfire, the mammoths meandering, their heavy footfalls a dull thud on the earth. Two giants are there, clad in their usual questionable fashion choice loincloths, carrying their massive tree trunk clubs. This is the core in-game fact. The camp is called Golden Rock, and the standard procedure for a Dragonborn encountering a giant's camp is typically binary. Option A, give it a wide berth. Giants are by default non-hostile unless you get too close to their mammoths. They are the gentle, if territorial giants of Skyrim. They are essentially massive, grumpy farmers. Option B, engage in some light genocidal pest control, probably for a bounty from a Jarl, or just to see if that launch you into the stratosphere death animation is still as funny as you remember. It is. It's always funny. Let's say the Dragonborn, feeling the need to vent some of the existential angst from Trius's rest, chooses option B. The giants are dispatched, their massive forms thudding to the earth. The mammoths, sadly, follow. The Dragonborn wanders the now quiet camp, looking for the standard, oversized giant chest. They find it, pry it open, and loot the always underwhelming collection of cheese wheels hides, and perhaps a mediocre enchanted club. And that's that. They've cleared Golden Rock. The map icon is filled. Time to move on. But wait. The Dragonborn, ever the nosy adventurer, stops. There's a smell. The location is called Golden Rock, but if the Dragonborn had gotten close enough, they would have seen another name pop up. The Reeking Cave. But where is the cave? There is no dark opening in the rock. No obvious door. There is, however, a pond. It's a small, rather unimpressive-looking pond at the edge of the camp. It looks like a simple watering hole for the mammoths. It's stagnant, murky, and, well, reeking is a very, very good word for it. It probably smells like wet mammoth, old cheese, and something else. Something foul. That familiar coppery charnel house smell that every seasoned adventurer knows by heart. the smell of Falmer. The Dragonborn, sighing and no doubt regretting not investing in a potion of please God don't make me touch this, holds their breath and dips into this disgusting-looking pond. It's not deep. It's a short, claustrophobic underwater tunnel. They swim for a few seconds in the murky brown water and surface. They're in a cave. They're inside Gulden Rock. The rock is hollow, and it is not a giant's home. The familiar, grotesque, and deeply upsetting architecture of the Falmer is everywhere. Chitinous, organic-looking huts, tanned skins of what, it's better not to ask, stretched into crude tents, and the sound, that awful, wet, skittering, chittering sound echoing in the dark. This is the reeking cave. The giant's camp on the surface is just the roof. The Dragonborn is now in a standard, if well-hidden, Falmer hive. They draw their weapon, the light from their torch, or their preferred mage light spell, glinting off the wet, pulsating walls. They fight their way through the pale, blind creatures, their movements fast and spider-like. They cut down their chorus insect pets, those giant, acid-spitting centipedes. It's business as usual for a seasoned dungeoneer, but the implication of this place is far more interesting than the combat. This is the obscure lore that many overlook. What is the relationship between the giants on the surface and the Falmer below? We see them as entirely separate monster categories, but here they are symbiotic, or at least cohabitating. In-game books, like The Rare Giants, A Study, portray giants as simple, nomadic, and having their own ancient pre-human culture centered on mammoth herding. They are not stupid. They are just non-verbal and non-materialistic. The Falmer, as we know, are the debased, vengeful, and highly organised remnants of the Snow Elves, plotting their reconquest of the surface from their deep, dark kingdom. And these two groups are living quite literally on top of each other. The giants must know the Falmer are down there. The smell, the reek, it's coming from their own watering hole. This brings us to the community's favourite debate about this location. What exactly is the deal here? Theory A. It's an alliance, a pact. The giants, with their surface-level strength, and the Falmer, with their underground numbers, have a non-aggression pact. Maybe they even trade. The Falmer are known to enslave surface dwellers. Maybe they leave the giants alone in exchange for... what? The giants get protection? The Falmer get a very large early warning system on their front lawn? Theory B, which is much more plausible and funnier, is that this is the worst neighbour relationship in all of Skyrim. The giants are the loud thumping, why are they bowling at 3 AM upstairs apartment neighbours. The Falmer are the weird, smelly, I think they're cooking meth basement-dwelling neighbours. They hate each other, but they are both too powerful, or too entrenched to evict the other. The Falmer can't fight a giant head-on. The giants can't or won't squeeze into the tiny, disgusting pond to clear out the hive, so they just coexist in a state of mutually assured, simmering annoyance. Then there's Theory C, the darker, more Skyrim theory. The giants are in effect unwitting bait. The Falmer are smart. They know the giants are a huge, visible and dangerous presence. They also know that adventurers, bandits and bounty hunters, like the Dragonborn, are constantly trying to kill giants. The Falmer just wait. They let the giants act as a lure. When a fight breaks out on the surface, the Falmer wait until it's over, and then they creep out through their reeking pond, and they harvest the bodies. They drag the dead giants, the dead mammoths, and the dead adventurers down into their larder. The giants aren't their neighbours, they're the free sample display that draws in the food. The Dragonborn clears the hive. It's a decent-sized cave system looping back on itself. They find the main boss chest, grab the loot, and return to the pond. They dive back into the murky water and surface in the now silent giant camp. The sun is setting. The giant's bonfire is still crackling. The mammoths are still dead. The Dragonborn stands there, covered in pond scum and Falmer blood, and looks at this camp which now seems so different. It's not just a camp, it's a duplex. It's a thin, rocky ceiling separating two of Skyrim's most iconic and most misunderstood cultures. It's a secret hidden in plain sight, concealed not by a magical barrier, but by the simple, human and elven and Khajiiti assumption that no one in their right mind would ever swim in a giant's toilet. The Dragonborn stands in the muck and chitin of the reeking cave, having silenced the Fulmer hive that lived, parasitically, beneath the giant's camp at Gulden Rock. They are covered in a truly impressive layer of, well, reek is the only word for it. Pond scum, Shorus ichor, Fulmer blood. They are a walking biohazard, and they have a choice. They can return to the pond, to that disgusting, murky underwater tunnel, and emerge back into the relatively fresh air of Whiterun. Or they can follow the drafts. The Fulmer came from somewhere. Their tunnels don't just end. And in the back of the hive there is a low, narrow passage, barely large enough to crawl through, from which a familiar, cool, mineral-scented air is flowing. It's the smell of the deep earth, the smell of Black Reach. Having already been unceremoniously dropped into that lost world via the Kagrenzel express elevator, the Dragonborn is at least somewhat prepared. This time, they enter on their own terms. They crawl through the tunnel, which widens and widens until the low, cramped ceiling of the cave vanishes, replaced by an impossible, distant, starry vault of rock. They have emerged onto a high ledge, and the world has fallen away at their feet. Below them, vast, silent, and illuminated by a cold, blue-green light, is Black Reach, that subterranean lost continent stretching for miles in every direction. The air hums. It's the sound of the giant glowing mushrooms, the faint distant rush of underground rivers, and, oh gods, the chiming. That high-pitched, maddening, ethereal chiming. Crimson Nirnroot. The Dragonborn can see it from here. Dozens of the cursed, glowing red plants scattered across the landscape. Somewhere, in an afterlife of his own, the ghost of Sinderian is probably rubbing his spectral hands together in glee. For the Dragonborn, it's just a high-pitched botanical headache. But this time, they are not here for the flora. They are here for the view. They are on a high, narrow path. Most adventurers who find their way down here, either through the main dungeon funnels of Elftan, Mazincheleft or Ruldbthar, stick to the main valley floor. They dash from ruined city to glowing mushroom, trying to find the next quest marker. But the Dragonborn is looking up. The walls of this colossal cavern are not natural rock. They are covered in Dwemer architecture. Balconies, buttresses, towers and aqueducts cling to the stone, a vertical, bronze-plated metropolis. And high above the main floor, far from the silent city, the Dragonborn spots it. A small, unassuming opening in the rock face, fronted by a simple, bronze balcony. It is not marked. It is not grand. It is accessible only by a winding, treacherous, half-collapsed stone staircase carved into the cavern wall. It's a path that only a goat or an adventurer with a reckless disregard for gravity would attempt. The Dragonborn, being the latter, begins to climb. The stairs are cracked, slick, with moisture. A single misstep would send them plummeting 1,000 feet to the cavern floor. After a nerve-wracking ascent, they reach the small landing. A simple, bronze doorway leads into a small, dark room. It's not a dungeon. It's not a city. It's an outpost. A single, small, circular room, perhaps a guard post, and on the far side, an open archway leads to the balcony. The Dragonborn steps out. This is the core in-game fact. The true scale of Black Reach is not just its floor space, it's its verticality. The Dwemer didn't just build in Black Reach, they mastered it, from top to bottom. This balcony, this tiny forgotten outpost, is one of hundreds. The Dragonborn has found what can only be described as a war-overlooked grotto. The name feels right, because from this vantage point the Dragonborn can see everything. The view is staggering. It is perhaps the single greatest view in all of Tamriel, and it is 1,000 miles underground. They can see the full, breathtaking expanse, the pulsing blue glow of the giant sun, that massive artificial orb that hangs in the sky, the distant spiderweb-thin lines of Dwemer bridges connecting towers, the dark, silent cluster of buildings that is the Silent City, the faint orange pinpricks of light from the Falmer camps, scattered like a diseased constellation on the dark ground below. They can see the waterfalls, plunging from even higher unseen sources, feeding the rivers that carve through the landscape. This is a god's eye view. This is the view of a master. and that's when the horror of it settles in. This was not a scenic overlook. This was a watchtower, a guard post, a military observation deck. This is where the obscure lore chills the blood. The Dwemer, as we know, blinded the snow elves, enslaved them, and brought them down into the dark. But why? In-game books like The Falmer, a study in Dwemer inquiries, paint a chilling picture. The Dwemer were scientists. They didn't just enslave the Falmer, they remade them. They fed them, generation after generation, on the native glowing fungi of Blackreach. This diet, this controlled toxic environment, is what devolved them. It destroyed their minds, heightened their other senses, and turned them into the blind, chittering creatures the Dragonborn fights today. This vast, beautiful, glowing cavern. It wasn't a refuge. It was a farm. It was a plantation. And the crops were the mushrooms, and the livestock were the Falmer. This war-overlooked grotto wasn't built to watch for an invading army. It was built for internal security. It was the perch for the Dwemer overseer, the manager of this vast subterranean soul-crushing enterprise. From here, they could watch their blind, broken slaves toiling in the mushroom fields below, tending the very crops that were methodically and scientifically erasing their civilization, their intelligence, and their very souls. It is a cruelty of such a cold, patient industrial scale that it makes Arundel's little ghost harem in Ingville look like amateur hour. The Dragonborn looks out at the cavern, at that great glowing orb in the centre, and this, of course, is the great central fan debate of Blackreach. What is that sun? Theory A. It's an Ethereum engine, a massive constructed crystal, perhaps a shard of the Ethereum Forge itself, designed to provide a geologically focused luminescence, as Sindarian's notes call it. It's a power source, an artificial sun to make the mushroom crops grow, and to power the cities of Alfdand, Ralbthar and Zinchileft. Theory B, it's a tonal resonator. This is the more popular and more sinister theory. The Dwemer were masters of tonal architecture, a magic that could bend reality by using specific sound frequencies. The sun doesn't just glow, it hums, it pulses. This theory suggests the orb is a massive mind control device, emitting a constant subsonic tone that suppressed the farmers' memories, broke their wills, and locked them in their devolved state. It was, in effect, a stupid ray aimed at an entire species. Theory C, it's a weapon, a giant focusing lens aimed up, a doomsday device, gathering power, preparing to, what? Scour the surface, challenge the sun itself. The Dwemer's arrogance, after all, was what supposedly erased them. Perhaps this was the device they were building when they disappeared. The Dragonborn stands on the cold bronze balcony, the cold blue light of this horrifyingly beautiful farm washing over them. The chiming of the crimson nirnroot suddenly sounds less like a song and more like a warning siren, an echo of a million screaming souls. They have seen the secret. The secret is not that Blackreach exists. The secret is what it was. They turn their back on the view. In the small guard room, they find a small, forgotten lift. A simple, grated metal platform. They pull the lever. With a groan of ancient, long-dormant gears, the lift begins to rise, pulling them up and up and up. Out of the beautiful, terrible, silent grotto, and back towards a world where the monsters at least are honest. That Dwemer lift, that glorious, rickety, 1,000-year-old elevator from the war-overlooked grotto, groans and shudders as it carries the Dragonborn upwards. It pulls them from the cold, blue, genocidal beauty of Blackreach up a shaft of darkness until it finally deposits them, with a clank, in a small, forgotten Dwemer shack on the surface. They step out, blinking into the familiar biting wind of the Pale. The door to the lift is sealed. The secret is kept. But the Dragonborn is changed. The world feels thinner. They have seen the vast, horrifying and complex world beneath the world, and now the surface of Skyrim, for all its dragons and civil wars, feels like a single, simplistic layer. This feeling, this restlessness, sparks a new, dangerous hunger. The hunger for a new horizon. The mainland of Skyrim, from the Reach to the Rift, feels known. It feels explored. It is time to cross the water. It is time to go somewhere truly other. The Dragonborn travels to Windhelm to the bustling, snow-dusted docks. they find a ship, the Northern Maiden, and its beleaguered captain, Jarlund. He's a true Nord, grumpy and sceptical, but for a price, a rather steep 250 septims, the man clearly knows a captive market when he sees one. He agrees to make the journey. The ship pulls away from the docks, leaving the high stone bridges of Ulfric's capital behind. They cut through the grinding ice flows of the Sea of Ghosts, the same waters that hide the sunken fleet of Pilgrim's Trench. But this time, they are not diving in. They are pressing on. After a journey that is cold, wet, and no doubt full of the smell of stale fish, a new land rises from the mist. It is dominated by a single, terrifying landmark. The great, grey, smoking peak of Red Mountain, looming on the southern horizon, a constant ugly reminder of the disaster that reshaped this part of the world. The air here tastes of ash. This is Solstheim. The Dragonborn disembarks at the docks of Raven Rock, a Dunmer city built in the shadow of a massive, exhausted ebony mine. The place is a study in contrasts. The architecture is pure Morrowind, curved, chitinous, organic-looking. The guards are Redoran. The people are dark elves, wrapped in scarves. Their voices are low, gravelly rasp. But the island itself, it's a battlefield of biomes. The entire southern half is a dead, grey, abrasive ash waste, populated by creeping, horrifying ash spawn. The northern half, however, is a different world. It is a frozen, jagged, Arctic nightmare, a place that makes Winterhold look like a tropical resort. The Dragonborn naturally decides to explore the most inhospitable part first. They travel north, past the strange mushroom-filled enclave of Tel Mithrin, past the last bastion of Nordic tradition in the Skarl village, and into the absolute frozen wilderness. They are on the northernmost coast of this new, hostile island. The sea here is even colder, the ice flows bigger, the wind more personal. It feels less like weather and more like a physical assault. The Dragonborn is, once again, swimming in water that would kill a normal person in 30 seconds. It's a wonder the Dragonborn hasn't just become a Draugr at this point. They've spent so much time in freezing, dead places. They are hopping from ice floe to ice floe, perhaps hunting the local tusked hawkers, or just seeing what's out here, at the literal edge of the map. And they see it. A tiny, insignificant, snow-blasted island. It's not a camp, it's barely a rock, it's just a place. The Dragonborn pulls themselves from the water, their armour crackling with a fresh coat of ice. The location registers Ironback Hideout. This is the core in-game fact. The hideout is a total failure. It's a single, tiny, half-buried shack, its boards shattered by wind and, it seems, by violence. As the Dragonborn approaches, they see the first body, a Nord, face down in the snow, an arrow in his back. Then another, a Redguard slumped against the shack wall, a dagger in his chest. This isn't a hideout, it's a crime scene. The Dragonborn, ever the wasteland detective, pushes open the creaking broken door. Inside, it's a scene of final, pathetic desperation. 2 more bodies, and a third slumped over a small wooden table. This one, a Dunmer, seems to be the leader, and on the table, beneath his lifeless hand, is a note. A traitor's note. The Dragonborn, brushing the ice from the parchment, reads the story. It's a smuggler's tale. The crew was here to sell a shipment to a buyer, a big-shot Dunmer from the mainland, representing House Hlalu. But the Hlalu, it seems, decided to acquire the goods and save on the payment. They didn't send merchants, they sent assassins. The note is a frantic, dying confession from this very Dunmer, who was the traitor. He was part of the crew, and he sold his friends out for a handful of drakes. But the assassins, being professionals, decided to clean up all loose ends. The traitor, in his final ironic moments, realised he'd been double-crossed himself. He died on this frozen rock, surrounded by the friends he'd murdered, with his blood money still in his pocket. The hideout is a bust. The treasure, it seems, is gone. But the traitor's note also mentions a key he'd made for his personal stash. And it slipped, he says, into the water just north of the island. The Dragonborn, sighing a sigh that fogs the air, wades back into the freezing dark water. They dive, and at the bottom, wedged between 2 rocks, is a locked chest. This is where the obscure lore surfaces. The chest contains gold, gems, and often Solstheim-specific goods. Raw ebony, rare Dunmeri liquors, ash yams. This isn't just a skooma runner, this is a high-stakes political economic operation. As in-game books like the History of Raven Rock detail, Solstheim has always been a smuggler's paradise. It's remote, it's barely governed, and it sits perfectly between three major kingdoms: Skyrim, Morrowind, and, via the sea, High Rock. The East Empire Company tried and failed to tame it. It is, and always has been, a lawless in-between place, run by shadow economies. This little, failed, bloody deal is just one tiny, frozen cog in a machine of illicit trade that defines the entire island. But the most fascinating part of that note is the identity of the assassins. The traitor mentions them by name, the Morag Tong. This, of course, is the central fan debate surrounding the island. Why the Morag Tong? The Morag Tong are not the Dark Brotherhood. The Brotherhood are a quasi-religious death cult, a chaotic, dysfunctional family of weirdos who kill for a spooky skeleton lady in a crypt. The Morag Tong, by contrast, are a legal, guild-sanctioned and highly professional organisation of assassins based in Morrowind who exclusively serve the Great Houses. They fulfil writs. Their assassinations are not murder, they are legally sanctioned executions. So why would House Hlala hire them for this? Theory A, the breach of contract theory. The smugglers got greedy. They tried to double-cross the Hlalu first, perhaps by raising the price or trying to sell to a rival, like House Redoran, Hlalu's mortal enemy, who runs Raven Rock. The Hlalu, being a merchant house, saw this as a breach of contract, and thus legally, by their own cultural standards, filed a writ to have the smugglers removed. Theory B, the cost-benefit theory. This is the more popular and more cynical theory. The Hlalu never intended to pay. They are a great house of merchants. They did the math. The cost of the goods was, say, 50,000 septims. The cost of a few writs for the Morag Tong to remove a handful of non-guild, non-citizen, nobody smugglers? 10,000. It's not malice. It's not passion. It's just good business. Cold, sociopathic, and perfectly in character for House Hlalu. Theory C, the traitor was a Hlalu theory. The traitor was the Hlalu agent. He infiltrated the crew, set up the deal, and then called in the Tong to liquidate the sellers. His final note wasn't a confession. It was a report he never got to send because the assassins he hired were also under orders to leave no witnesses. The Dragonborn stands on the tiny frozen rock. The wind screams. The bodies are already freezing solid. They have the contents of the underwater chest, but the treasure feels, as always, secondary. This isn't a grand dungeon. It's a tiny, pathetic and very human and Dwemer story of greed and betrayal. It's a reminder that even here, at the literal frozen northernmost edge of the known world, you can't escape the two great constants of Tamriel: politics and people stabbing each other in the back for gold. The Dragonborn stands on the frozen, bloody snow of Ironback Hideout. The traitor's note in their hand, the screams of the wind in their ears. Solstheim is a land of ash and ice, of betrayal and hardship. It is a mortal place, defined by mortal greed. But the Dragonborn. Their journey has taken them beyond the veil of the world before. They have dealt with Daedric princes, they have seen the inside of a god's stomach in Sovngarde. And now, a new supernatural threat is pulling them back to the mainland. The vampire menace, the Dawnguard questline. We must for a moment step out of the linear path of exploration and into the grand, world-changing narrative that the Dragonborn is, ostensibly, the star of. They have met Serana, the ancient, complicated and surprisingly charming vampire princess. They have travelled with her to her home, the gothic, oppressive and eternally night-shrouded Castle Volkihar. And they have been given a task, to enter a place that mortals were never meant to see. A plane of oblivion, but not one of the major ones. Not the fiery hell of the Deadlands, or the beautiful mad nightmare of the Shivering Isles. They are going to a place of filing. A place of endless, grey, administrative despair. The Dragonborn, having made the terrible choice to either partially soul-trap themselves, or, more wisely, let Serana's vampiric blood do the work, steps into a strange, magical portal in the castle's undercroft. The world dissolves. It is not a teleport. It is dissociation. The feeling is of cold and of pressure, as if the very essence of the Dragonborn is being squeezed through a crack in reality. They open their eyes and wish they hadn't. They are standing in the soul cairn. The sky, if you can call it that, is a churning, sickly void of purple and grey, pierced by a single, baleful, light-sucking orb. The ground is a cracked, dry expanse of something. It's not rock. It's not earth. It looks like compressed bone dust. Strange, skeletal, half-formed structures jut from the ground like the ribs of a long-dead god. Ghostly, translucent weeds grow in patches, and the air is filled with a constant, overlapping, sibilant whispering. It is the sound of a million souls, all complaining, all weeping, all begging, all resigned. This is not a hell of fire and torment. This is a hell of endless bureaucratic waiting. This is the afterlife's DMV. This is the core in-game fact. The Dragonborn is here, along with Serana, to find the Elder Scroll and Serana's mother, the brilliant and just as complicated Valerica. This is the main quest. The Dragonborn is supposed to follow the path, find Valerica's massive magical prison, be told to hunt down the 3 boneyard keepers, kill them, and free her. Most players do this. They are so oppressed by the sheer, soul-crushing depression of this place, so annoyed by the skeletal bone men and the hooded, floating mist men, that they do the main quest and get out fast. They grab the skull for the spectral horse Arvak because that is admittedly a 12/10 reward, and they never ever come back. But the Dragonborn is a completionist, and as they wander this vast grey landscape, they notice other things. In the ruins of a small shattered building, they find a small glowing gem, a Reaper gem fragment, a quest. One with no marker, no guidance, no helpful map icon flickers to life. Find the Reaper's lair. The Dragonborn now has a new purpose. They are not just a hero, they are a cosmic snoop. They begin to scour the soul cairn, which is a truly miserable experience. It's like being forced to explore the world's largest, saddest cemetery while looking for 3 pieces of a broken paperweight. They find the fragments, one by one, held in high, hard-to-reach chests, or guarded by spectral wrathmen. And then they find the lair. It's an unassuming structure, at least by Soulcairn standards. A dark stone building that looks like a small, evil chapel. Inside, it's dark, save for a single, ominous light. In the centre of the room is an altar, and on the altar are 3 obvious gem-sized depressions. The Dragonborn, who we last saw touching the obviously a trap orb in Kagrenzel, has clearly learned nothing. With that same glorious, what could go wrong energy, they place the 3 Reaper gem fragments onto the altar. There is a sound, a low, resonant, dimensional boom, a flash of purple light, and from a puff of black smoke he appears, the Reaper. This is not a boneman, this is not a mistman, this is the Reaper. He is a colossal hooded figure clad in tattered black robes. His face is a void of pure shadow save for 2 glowing, malevolent pinpricks of light. He wields a massive 2-handed scythe. He does not speak. He does not monologue. He simply reaps. He is, in short, a secret boss, an optional, terrifyingly powerful enemy in a realm already full of enemies. The fight is chaos. He moves with a speed that belies his size, his scythe carving huge, glowing arcs in the dark. He summons a small army of spectral minions, bonemen, wrathmen, mistmen, to swarm the Dragonborn, while he himself wades in, a tank of pure undead malice. He is, to put it mildly, a significant step up from the local wildlife. It is a tough, desperate potion-chugging fight in a small dark room. But the Dragonborn, of course, prevails. The Reaper shudders, his form flickering, and then dissolves into a pile of black ash. The Dragonborn is left panting in the silent dark chapel. The loot is interesting. A Daedra heart, 3 black soul gems, and his scythe. This is where the obscure lore becomes fascinating. What or who did the Dragonborn just kill? The game gives 0 explanation. This is where the true horror of the Soulcairn comes in. In-game dialogue from Valerica and rare books like the Soulmeld Mage explain that the Soulcairn is not run by a Daedric prince. It is run by the Ideal Masters. They are not physical beings. They are formless, crystalline, energy-based entities who operate on pure, cold cosmic logic. They are in effect the ultimate interstellar loan sharks. They tricked mortals for millennia, offering immortality in exchange for their souls, only for those mortals to arrive and find that immortality meant an eternity as a battery in our soul-powered Whisper Kingdom. So, this leads to the massive fan debate. What is the Reaper? Theory A, the Enforcer. The Reaper is not an ideal master. He is their employee. He is a bound Daedric entity, a unique, powerful Dwemer perhaps, which is supported by the Daedra Heart Drop, who serves as their bouncer. He is the Reaper because the ideal masters task him with reaping souls that get out of line. Or perhaps he guards their central server, their crystalline primary consciousness. The Dragonborn, by assembling the key, just summoned the plane's head of security and then murdered him. Theory B, the aspect of Sithis. This is a darker, more compelling theory. The Dark Brotherhood, as we know, worships Sithis, the Dread Father, the personification of the void and of entropy. They harvest souls for him. What if? The Reaper is a literal manifestation of Sithis, or an aspect of him, in the same way the Daedric princes have aspects. The soul cairn, this place of soul decay and entropy, would be a perfect place for Sithis to have a foothold. The ideal masters may just be parasites on the void, and the Reaper is the void's antibody. Theory C, the first soul, perhaps the most tragic theory. The Reaper is not a Daedra. He is mortal, or he was. He was the very first or the most powerful soul ever trapped by the ideal masters. Over the millennia they broke him, twisted him, and promoted him, turning him into their perfect, mindless and all-powerful warden. He is the ultimate trustee, a prisoner who now runs the prison. The Dragonborn stands in the quiet chapel holding a Daedra heart. They have no answers. They have only the loot and the silence. They have found the deepest, darkest secret of this secret hell dimension, and the secret is that there is always a bigger, scarier monster, and sometimes it's the one that's supposed to be in charge. The Dragonborn stumbles back through the portal out of the soul cairn and collapses onto the cold, hard, blessedly real stone of Castle Volkihar. The air in the Undercroft is foul, smelling of ancient dust, bat guano, and the damp rot of a 1,000-year-old fortress. It is the most beautiful, wonderful, life-affirming smell the Dragonborn has ever encountered. They have left the purple, whispering, soul-sucking void behind. They have, on a personal side quest, also managed to punch the physical manifestation of death in this dimension until it dissolved, which is a story that will be difficult to explain to the Bard's College. They have the Elder Scroll, they have Valerica, they have, in short, had enough of vampires, enough of prophecies, and more than enough of Oblivion Plains that look like a goth kid's final depressing art project. They need to go, not just from the castle, but from the entire magical apocalypse of the week. They need something grounding, they need to hit something with a hammer, they need a simple, straightforward, mortal problem. So, they travel. They leave the haunted, fog-shrouded coast of Halffinger and travel south, back into the most reliably, aggressively mortal place on the continent. The Reach. We are back. Back in the land of sheer grey cliffs, of why is the path vertical mountain climbing, and of the perpetually stylishly angry Forsworn. This land, it seems, holds more secrets than any other. It held the magnificent suicidal stage of Bard's Leap Summit. It held the quiet, heartbreaking final embrace of Trius and Ramati. This time, the Dragonborn is here on business. A bounty, perhaps, or just a rumour from an innkeeper in Markarth. Forsworn have taken over an old Dwemer ruin in the cliffs. Go. Make them. Not have it. The Dragonborn is climbing. Again. The path is a goat track, a treacherous, crumbling ledge of scree on the side of a mountain, somewhere in the southern part of the hold. The air is thin, the wind is sharp. Below, the valley floor is a distant green and grey map, and, as always, the Forsworn have made their presence known. Their decorating style is on full display. Sharpened sticks, animal skulls, cryptic, angry-looking totems. It's the live laugh love sign of a people who have really run out of patience. The Dragonborn dispatches the sentries, their bodies tumbling down the cliffside, a long silent fall. They push up the final ascent, and then they see it. It is not a cave, It is not a buried city, it is a balcony. A colossal, impossible, semicircular platform of golden Dwemer metal jutting straight out from the cliff face. It hangs over a 1,000-foot drop, supported by nothing. There are no great stone pillars, there are no massive buttresses, it just is. It is a profound architectural, because I said so, a testament to a people who saw gravity as less of a law and more of a polite suggestion, which they had chosen to ignore. This is Reachwind, Eyrie. This is the core in-game fact. Reachwind Eyrie is a small, vertical Dwemer ruin, now occupied by Forsworn, that seems to have no purpose other than its own existence. The Dragonborn enters the structure. It's not a city, it's barely a ruin, it's a tower. A single, small, multi-leveled tower built into the rock. The Forsworn have turned it into a barracks. Their crude fur and stick tents a bizarre, almost comical-looking stain on the clean, precise, immortal lines of Dwemer metal. It's like finding a muddauber's nest built inside a microchip. The Dragonborn fights their way up the small circular rooms, cutting down the last of the Forsworn, the Briarheart leader falling with a final wet gasp. And then silence. The Dragonborn is at the top. They step through a final bronze doorway and onto the balcony. The wind. It is a physical, solid thing up here. A screaming, endless roar that fills the ears. The Dragonborn has to brace themselves against it. The view is... it's just... all of it. The whole of the Reach. From the silver-veined city of Markarth in its canyon to the winding blue-green line of the Karth River far below. They are above the birds. They are at the height of the clouds. It is perhaps the most magnificent, useless and beautiful vantage point in all of Skyrim. It is a place built for the express purpose of seeing. But why? This is the central mystery. It's not a fortress. It's tiny and indefensibly exposed. It's not a mine. It's solid rock. It's not a city. And this is where the obscure lore provides the clues. The Dwemer, as we know, were a people of the underground. They were the Deep Elves. They built their cities in the rock near the heat of the lava, near their precious Ethereum. But their minds were in the sky. In-game texts, like Dwemer Inquiries and the Ethereum Wars, describe a people obsessed with the stars, with the planets, with the music of the spheres. They built vast, intricate orreries underground to model the heavens. They were, in their cold, logical, atheistic way, the most profound stargazers in Tamriel's history. They didn't look to the sky for gods, they looked to it for data. They wanted to understand the divine so they could reverse engineer it. Reachwind Eyrie, then, was not a fortress. It was an observatory. It was the one place in Skyrim where the Dwemer left their caves and built, as high as they possibly could, to get closer to their subject, to get above the clouds, above the weather, above the noise of the mortal world. The Dragonborn turns from the wind-blasted edge and explores the shelter part of the Eyrie. Past the balcony, there is a small inner chamber. It's not a war room, it's not a forge, it's a study. There is a stone bed, a desk, a chair. This was a home for one. A single Dwemer scientist, or perhaps a philosopher, lived here, in total isolation, and this, of course, is the heart of the fan debate. Who was this Dwemer? Theory A, the astronomer. This is the simple theory. This was a remote research station. A lone Dwemer scientist lived here for decades, meticulously charting the constellations, the passage of the moons, the slow drift of the ethereal energies from the sky. They would have sent their data, perhaps via some tonal dispatch, to the great libraries of Mzinchileft or Markarth. Theory B, the heretic. This is the more tragic poetic theory. What if this Dwemer wasn't sent here but exiled? In a society of rigid collective subterranean logicians, what if this Dwemer was a romantic? A sky dreamer? A philosopher who perhaps began to see divinity in the stars instead of just data? A true Dwemer heretic. The council, in their infinite cold wisdom, promoted them. They gave this dreamer exactly what they wanted, a permanent, isolated and completely irrelevant post, where they could stare at the sky all they wanted, and their strange, illogical ideas could never infect the collective. They were given the most beautiful view in the world, as a prison. Theory C, the Watcher. The most ominous theory. What were they watching for? The The Dwemer had no love for the Nords or the other surface dwellers, but they weren't afraid of them. What if this was a watchtower aimed up? The Dwemer were one of the few races to ever fight the dragons and win, or at least fight them to a draw, forcing them underground. Perhaps this eyrie was one of a dozen such stations, a long-range dragon watch, scanning the skies for the return of Alduin, a threat they, and they alone, were logical enough to anticipate. The Dragonborn finds a chest. It contains the usual Dwemer cogs, a few ingots, an enchanted helmet. The real treasure, the real loot, is the question. They look at the small stone bed and the desk. They can almost see the long-dead Dwemer sitting there, night after night for centuries, staring into the black starry void. The mystery of who they were and what they found is as vast and as empty as the sky in front of them. The Dragonborn turns and leaves the impossible lonely balcony to the wind. We have been to the highest peaks, to the wind-scoured, impossible and lonely balcony of the Dwemer at Reachwind Eyrie. We have stood above the world, sharing a view with a ghost of logic and ambition, and now we come down. We return to the earth, to the soil, to the roads that connect the simple mortal folk of this land. Our great journey, our grand catalogue of secrets, is drawing to its close. It is fitting, then, that our final location is not one that can be found. It is one that must find you. The Dragonborn is on the road. The hour is late. It is well past 10 at night. The moons, Massa and Secunda, are high, casting a cold, silver-blue light over the plains of Whiterun. The Dragonborn is travelling perhaps from Whiterun's gates towards the western watchtower, or maybe on the road south near the Hunningbrew Meadery. The world is asleep. The only sound is the crunch of their own boots on the gravel path, the hoot of a distant owl, and the thud, thud, thud of hoofbeats. It's a sound that makes the Dragonborn pause, hand dropping to their hilt. Bandits? A courier? But the sound is wrong. It's hollow. It's cold. It seems to come from the air itself, not from the ground. And then he appears. He bursts from the trees at a full gallop, a spectral, shimmering figure of blue-green light. He is a Nord, clad in ancient studded armour, and he is riding a spectral horse, its eyes burning with a cold blue fire, and he is headless. His head is not gone. He carries it, tucked neatly under one arm, its helmeted face pointing forward as if to light the way. This is the Headless Horseman. This is the core in-game fact. Between the hours of 10 PM and 4 AM, this unique spectral entity can be randomly encountered on the roads of Skyrim. He is not hostile. He will not attack. He does not speak. He does not acknowledge the Dragonborn. He does not even seem to see them. He is on an urgent, silent and eternal errand. He gallops down the road, his spectral form passing through any living thing. A wolf, a giant, a very surprised bandit that gets in his way. The Dragonborn, whose curiosity is by now a kind of incurable supernatural disease, immediately gives chase, and this is no easy task. The horseman is fast. He rides at a full relentless gallop, a sprint that never seems to tire. The Dragonborn is forced into a desperate lung-burning chase, chugging stamina potions using their whirlwind sprint shout just to keep the blue-green apparition in sight. They run and they run, following this ghostly rider on his midnight dash. The horseman's path is not random. It is set. He's not haunting the roads. He's using them. He's travelling from a specific point near Whiterun, and he is heading somewhere. He rides with a purpose that feels less like a haunting and more like a commute. A grim, terrifying, post-life commute. The Dragonborn follows, their heart pounding for minutes, past farms, over bridges, through dark, sleeping forests. And then, just as the first, faint, grey-purple light of 4 AM begins to touch the eastern sky, the horseman slows. He turns off the main road, into a small, dark, wooded clearing. The Dragonborn, panting, slows as well, and watches. The horseman rides into the centre of the clearing and pulls his mount to a halt. He sits there for a moment, motionless, a king on a spectral throne. And as the dawn's light filters through the trees, he dissolves. He and his horse just fade like mist into nothingness. The Dragonborn is left alone, in a graveyard. It's not a marked location. It will never appear on their map. It is small, ancient, and forgotten. It's known to the community simply as the Headless Horseman's End. There are a few crumbling Nordic graves half swallowed by the earth. A few skeletons, perhaps his ancient guardians, lie scattered, dispatched by the Dragonborn in the chase. Or maybe just resting. In the centre of the clearing is a single, more prominent sarcophagus-style tomb, and in front of it is the treasure. A master-locked chest, yes, a reward for the chase, but also a single mundane iron helmet resting on the grave, and planted in the earth nearby, a weapon. The scene is set. This is his grave. This is where the obscure lore of the Nords becomes so important. A Nord's afterlife is everything. To die with honour in glorious battle is to earn a place in Sovngarde, in Shor's great hall, to drink and feast and fight forever. But what if you don't? What if you die without honour? Or what if you die in a way that prevents your soul from being claimed? In-game texts on Nordic burial are clear. Some spirits are restless. They are trapped by a curse, by a great failure, or by an unresolved oath. They are stuck. This horseman, he's not in Sovngarde, he is here, and his haunting is a loop, a sentence. Every night he is resurrected, forced to ride at a frantic pace to his own grave, only to be released by the dawn before it all starts again. It is a terrible, unending, and very precise hell. But who is he? This, of course, is the great fan debate. The game gives no definitive answer, but the community has all but settled on one glorious, perfect theory. He is Ragnar the Red. Think about it. The song is everywhere. Every bard in every tavern, from Solitude to Riften, sings of the braggart named Ragnar the Red. He was a Nord hero, or at least a Nord who thought he was, who came riding to Whiterun from old Rorikstead. He bragged of his blades and his deeds of great fun, until a shield maiden named Matilda told him to shut his mouth. He didn't. He drew his sword, and that braggart named Ragnar was boastful no more. When his head rolled around on the floor, he was beheaded in a tavern brawl, not in a glorious battle against elves or dragons or giants. He died foolishly in a mead hall because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. This is the antithesis of a glorious death. This is a shameful death. It's the one way a Nord warrior could guarantee he'd be barred from Sovngarde. And so, his spirit is trapped. His curse to reenact his shame forever. Every night, he comes riding to Whiterun, just as the song says. He is headless, just as the song describes his end. He rides, a ghost of his former boastful self, his journey ending night after night at his own, forgotten, dishonourable grave. He is the most famous failed hero in Skyrim, and his failure is so profound it has literally been etched into the world's nightly routine. He is the final secret. A story that is told every day in the taverns, but a story that is lived every night on the dark, lonely roads. The Dragonborn stands in the quiet, unmarked graveyard, the chest now empty, the helmet still resting on the stone. The first true rays of sunlight are filtering through the canopy. The world is waking up, and our long, strange journey is, at last, at its end. We have climbed to the highest, wind-scoured solitude of Angi's camp. We have dived to the lowest, forgotten mass grave of Pilgrim's Trench. We have uncovered the dark, personal and depraved secrets of men like Arundel, and the vast, industrial, genocidal secrets of the Dwemer in their sunless subterranean farms. We have met the ghosts of love, like Trius and Ramati, the ghosts of art, like Azadol, and the ghosts of eternal looping torment, like the horseman who just faded before our very eyes. We have found that Skyrim is not just a map. It is not just a collection of quests. It is a tapestry of 1,000 stories woven into the very land, in the water, in the sky, under the ground, and in the quiet, forgotten corners just off the path. The Dragonborn turns and begins the simple, mortal walk back to the road. The birds are beginning to sing. The air is cool and fresh. The world, for all its horrors, is beautiful. The secrets are safe for now. They are safe with the Dragonborn, and they are safe with us. And now, the chronicle is over. The last tale has been told. the shadows of your own room have grown long, and the soft hum of the fan or the quiet of the night is pulling you down into that gentle, comfortable stillness. The adventures are done. It is time to rest. So, dim the lights if you haven't already. Let your eyes drift closed. Let the last echoes of these stories, the wind from the eyrie, the chiming of the Nirnroot, the hollow sound of hooves, all just fade, becoming nothing more than a soft, distant murmur. There are no more monsters. There are no more graves. There is only the here and the now and the quiet, easy and well-deserved drift into sleep.